Welcome to Natural Born Talents. Today's subject, the secrets of the angels. This video is going to be about answering questions I've had in the comments sections for the past 2-3 months. Now, to answer the first question, how do I know what I know? In the Matrix, we are programmed to see what we think to be what reality is. When you get spiritually strong enough, you can see beyond it. Once you do this, you begin to see all of the beings in this world at this time who are pulling the trigger of one thing or another. It's really exciting because once you do that, you realize that death is nothing. This world is insane for a reason. The other side is so much lighter, so much more loving, so much more playful than what we have in this world at this time. Now, how I got there to this so-called enlightenment was by the help of my own ancestors, the help of the good angels, and all the various practices, spiritual practices I explored. I could never have done this alone. I had all kinds of beings teaching me in my subconscious in the earlier parts of my life. But later, when things got really kind of heavy and nasty because of the Satan contract, my ancestors woke me up, literally woke me up. And there was a whole process of going through that. And to this day, I can now channel with them when I really need to, but I also at times channel with other ancestors. In Japanese, we call it shigores, guardian spirits. In fact, just 2 days ago from the posting of this video, I walked into a shop where the shopkeeper and I started immediately having a conversation about all kinds of things in the past in Japan. And he looked at me and I started to realize that his ancestors were very close. And so I stopped and calmed myself down to listen to them. And sure enough, they started giving me information about him. So I read his aura and I told him everything their ancestors want him to know. And I realized he was getting close to death. He was old and he had been going to the shrine daily, praying to his ancestors and to the Shinto gods and probably Buddhist gods as well about his life. Now, he made some mistakes in this life and he has to go back and undo that. But his ancestors started showing me his life. And this guy's actually kind of famous back in the early parts of the 1960s and 70s. What was remarkable about this encounter was that he had just received a letter from the shrine that he prays to saying, "Today will be a very important day for you." And sure enough, I started telling him all about his life, the things that he needed to know at that time. And I could see in his eyes that he was worried about death, because I think he sensed he was getting close to it. But this individual was a survivor. He had a very hard time letting go of life, and his ancestors had pointed that out to me very clearly, as well as some of the great things he did in this life, as well as some of the bad things he did in this life. This is the very thing that I had learned from my own ancestors. They had taught me exactly the same thing. In fact, I had made my own mistakes in this life and had to go back to undo them, which were not many, and there was a few things that I needed to struggle against to improve myself spiritually, which was pointed out by my ancestors and the angels in this world. So to answer that question, it's a combination of being able to see from the other side while being in this world. Being able to channel from my ancestors and other people's ancestors information. Now, on this planet, the devil as well as fallen angels will give you misinformation, but that's the struggle in this planet at this time. To get through the lies, to get to the twisted truths, to get through all of the things to come to your own conclusions. Anything I say in these videos are about my own conclusions and what my ancestors believe. It is not necessarily what anybody who's listening to this, what you believe. But the whole purpose of Natural Born Talents is to get you to think, to question everything that you're told, because this world is designed this way. So a combination of being very empathetic to energies, energy sensitive, being able to see psychically beyond the matrix, being able to channel to my ancestors, being able to work with energies that are on this planet are the reasons why I know what I know. Is it everything? No. It's never everything. There's nobody I know in any part of the universe who knows everything. Now that leads us to the next question. How do you spiritually improve yourself? Well, in this world, the angel world is basically designed to improve people's lives, provided they do not succumb to ego. The matrix is designed for the egotists, the baby souls. The rest of us are to struggle against it in one way or another. And this is done in many multiple ways. In so many ways, it's impossible to list them all in one video. But some of the obvious ones is to struggle against the 7 deadly sins, for example. You can meditate, you can pray, you can practice martial arts, you can do yoga, you can get up in the morning and look around you, the loved ones around you, family members and friends. Give them a big hug. You can go outside and sit and listen to the birds chirp, the wind blow across your face, the smell of a coming storm, and connect yourself so deeply with nature that you feel everything around you, which is very Zen, by the way. That's another spiritual practice. You can do all of these things, and they will improve yourselves. But the angels had designed this world to fight ego. That's the number one enemy on this planet. Ego is basically the opposite of love. Not hate, not anger, because ego has all those things in them, hate and anger. They are the opposite of love. So when you go through this world and you question everything that is told you, and you listen carefully to what that source is saying, ask yourselves, is that information about love? Or is it about a manipulation? Is it about an ego trip? Is it about money? Is it about lust? Is it about any of the sins or games on this planet? And if the answer comes up no to love, it's likely something you need to struggle against. Not always, but usually that's the case. A simple example of that is that when you get up in the morning, and let's say you have a child who does something that is destructive or naughty, and you come down hard on them, maybe a little bit too hard, that they broke something, for example, that is very valuable, and the thing is impossible to repair. So you explode to the point where the child can't stop crying. And this is something that has been repeating and repeating over and over again in your life, and the scenario always ends up the same. But this time you stop and think, and you say to yourself, geez, why am I so upset? It's not that important. And you apologize to the child for getting angry, but at the same time you use the moment to discipline the child against naughty or destructive behavior. And then you go further and realize that maybe it was you yourself not being very clever in putting something so expensive in a place or a place near where children would play, because children naturally do so. Well, then you've caught on to the small part of the matrix. Someone is trying to teach you something. So if you slow down and you stop to think, to question everything you do towards another person and to yourself, and you ask yourself, am I living in denial? Am I lying? Am I cheating? and you come up with the answer that is, yes, maybe I am in somewhere and I need to change that, you've taken the first real important step in the angel world. The baby soul or the egotists always lie. They live in the fantasy world of their own creation. It goes so far that they begin to believe their own lies. They live in utter denial. When you start to move away from this, this is the first step to spiritual growth. People who live in denial, people who lie to themselves, will never move forward. And that's why this world can be so insane, is because when insanity takes over, it means the baby souls have control of the planet. And they will condemn you for what they are doing, which is usually evil, destructive, perverted, and so on. As I said in many videos, this world is two-dimensional, good versus evil, decadence versus moralism. And anybody on this planet can experience either side. The point is that if you've done something in your life that was horrible, or you've done something in your life that is moralistic, the point is not to deny those things, but incorporate them into your being, to understand them. If you deny them, you will be corrupted by them. But if you understand them and work with it, you are likely to overcome it because you've experienced it, and that is spiritual growth. Let me give you a simple example of this. I had two friends who were practicing something that was rather dark, and they liked the mood of it, they liked the anti-establishment feel to it, the sense of freedom that came with it. But after the while, they realized that what they were doing wasn't really helpful to anyone. It was just simply bucking the system because the moralists in their lives looked rather boring and stuffed, which they probably were. So eventually they left it and went on to something that wasn't extremely moralistic, but left the world of darkness. And now they live in happy little families. Now, having said that, we could look at their case and said, well, they experienced both sides. That's part of this world, to experience both darkness and moralism. The problem is if you take it too far on one side or the other. A common thing you might see is a decadent person feeling guilty about something they've done that was decadent and go to moralism to try to cure themselves with it. Now, sometimes that works, often it does not. So you can't deny another person their experience, but at the same time, you have to be careful of destructive people. That's why this world is sometimes so difficult to understand. How can someone go out and kidnap a child and destroy them, and destroy their life, just because of some selfish, perverted need? Now, we see this all the time, but when you look from behind the lines and see why that happens, is because somewhere in the family there was denial. Somewhere there was an open window for that scenario to happen. So is the perpetrator the only person who's at fault? That's never the case. The perpetrator committed an evil act, but somewhere in the scenario I just described, there is a family member who is willing that to happen, or is naive enough to happen. And as horrible as that scenario I just described is, it is the spiritual game on this planet. Now, having said that, of course, those who had willed such a horrific game have a price to pay in the inferno, and I'm not arguing that at all. I would stay away from that game at all costs. But perhaps the parents of such a child should have trained them in martial arts, should have been more loving, should have been more aware of their environment, should have done this, should have done that. I know when parents go through this, they have all these things running through their head. Maybe I should have done this. But you need to slow down and play detective, because that scenario that I just described, which is common these days, is not by chance. It's not that you were unlucky. It's all set up, because that's how the Matrix works. There's something you didn't see. There's something you needed to learn. There's something that you needed to grow from. And as painful as a scenario like that is, if you get through it, it will make you stronger. And I often see the child who got sacrificed for such a game did that willingly, deep in their subconscious, because they were there to teach that lesson for whatever reason that was. Now, I know this is a very controversial subject, but I'm trying to make the point. As a society as a whole, the whole community could grow from that very scenario. And maybe that was the point of that scenario. Maybe it was for an individual in the family. Maybe it was for the family as a whole. Maybe it was for friends. The reasons something like that happens in someone's life are endless. And you can choose to spiritually grow from it or allow it to destroy you. And that's what this world is about often. Struggling. Life on this planet at this time is never easy. You can understand yourself and others and spiritually grow to make your life easier. That's why most of the Heyoka empaths like to improve themselves. They're constantly trying to improve themselves because they instinctively know this world is about struggling. And it's a chance to make themselves better and the people around them better. Now, of course, as an individual, you will influence the people around you just as much. And you can do this in many ways. So in a way, you will be helping them, or sometimes, if you're a baby soul or something, preventing them from spiritually moving forward. However, if that individual catches on, you will only make them stronger. Now, recently, I had another run-in with my dear old friend, Satan. And boy, I really don't like him. He hit me very hard, and I was very angry at him for showing up in my life again, because I had enough of him. I've had enough of his game. But then I slowed myself down and started to think through why he was showing up. And I realized I was helping somebody that belonged to his cult, that belonged to his world, and I needed to let that person go. And when I did, he left. So again, daily life is really about a chance to improve yourself in so many ways as you can, by the very small things that you do in your life as well as the very big things. And of course, a lot of religious cults will say, we know the answer, come do this practice, come do that practice. And sometimes you may want to explore it for that reason alone, and to experience what a cult is like. I don't recommend it, because once you get in a cult, it's very, very difficult to get out of, and they're extremely dangerous. They just destroy. And I've seen too many people who have had their psyche snapped by going in too deep into something they shouldn't have. But then again, I've seen other people come out of darkness only to be stronger, only to be wiser, and to be very wary of evil, and surround themselves with people who are not corrupt, because they've had enough, they've experienced enough. They cannot make themselves stronger in this life any further. And they realized that, and they moved away from destructive behavior. To get back to the question of how to spiritually improve yourself, the easiest answer I can give is that, of course, you can practice prayer, meditation, yoga, martial arts, the Tantra yogas, any of these things. They'll all improve yourselves. That's true. But being aware of everything in your life, and don't get perfectionist about it, because that will take you in another direction, but just being aware of everything that you say and do with every individual, and see if you can improve that to something that's better, that's something that's more loving. And especially in the angel world, where good versus evil is really an illusion, and the answer to that illusion is love. If you can always be honest, loving, caring for everything around your life except the baby souls because you can't help them, then you will improve yourselves. In fact, understanding that you can't help baby souls or the egotists because they're going to go and they're lost. When you figure that out, well, that's part of your spiritual growth. You're now stronger. But again, all of these things you have to experience yourself. For me to tell you, for any cult to tell you, in the end, isn't very helpful because personal experience is key. A better thing to do is to give suggestions. Why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Maybe this will suit you. Maybe that will suit you. And be careful about judging other people for what they're doing. If somebody is practicing something that you don't have a taste in, but they like it and they're not harming anyone else, the worst thing you could do is judge them for it, because right there you're in your own denial of envy or whatever. People on this planet may be here to experience the experience of the angel world and that alone. There are so many reasons this world exists, and it can be fascinating, but it also can be very, very awful. Running into the moralistic angels or the decadence of Satan really is not something I would recommend to anyone, because the price is just too high. People's psyches get broken, you get corrupted, you can get spiritually trapped, and life starts to get very boring and mundane, and you stop growing yourself, and so on and so forth. Now this is going to lead to the next question I had, and this is more about the angels and the religions surrounding them. So I'll leave that for the next video. In any case, thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next video.